Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us as we take a deep dive into how the Green Bay School District works on a daily basis to protect your child online. Before we get too far into this presentation, I want to remind everybody that due to the content of this presentation, it is advised that children are not present during the time of the virtual session. My name is Amy Sturks, and I am the Executive Director of Technology and Information for the Green Bay School System. On a daily basis, our department is working hard to keep your children safe online. During today's presentation, we will review district policies and systems that keep our students and their data safe. We will also be joined by guest speakers from Brown County and Green Bay law enforcement, along with a representative from Family Services Sexual Assault Center. Today's children live in a digitally enhanced world, both in their social and learning spaces. Today's kids have 24/7 access to people, information, and ideas with digital technologies. Let's jump into how the district protects your children while using district-issued technology. According to a 2019 study by the Center for Cyber Safety and Education, 40% of kids in grades 4 through 8 have reported that they have connected or chatted online with a stranger. Another research center reports that 59% of kids have been bullied or harassed online. The district has policies in place to outline expectations regarding the use of district-issued devices and networks. We also have systems in place to protect your children from the dangers of online resources. As parents, in partnership with educators, it's everyone's responsibility to help students stay safe and become constructive digital citizens while utilizing online resources. Empowering our learners in understanding the best ways to engage with others online in a safe and ethical way is critical. In the next few slides, we will review the main points of our acceptable use policy and our social media policy. In regards to electronic communications, our acceptable use policy outlines that electronic communications must not contain defamatory, discriminatory, threatening, offensive, racist, deceptive, sexually explicit, or obscene content. It must not be used to bully, harass, degrade, or intimidate another person. It also must not be used to facilitate any unlawful activity or any violation of school rules. Our social media policy is applicable to district and social media accounts. However, student conduct and all board policy rules and athletic code apply. Social media accounts should not be used to threaten, bully, or contain inappropriate, illegal, or harmful social media content. The district values the rich learning, innovative creation, and communication experiences that technology brings to our students, classrooms, and families' lives. To support student learning, each student is assigned a district-issued device starting in 4K, where students are assigned an iPad. In grades kindergarten through 12th, students are assigned a Chromebook. In accordance with district policy and federal law, student devices are filtered to ensure the well-being and safety of all users. We use a few different systems to assist us with filtering student devices, both on and off-site. On-site, the district filters web content using a system called Palo Alto. Off-site, we use a system called Content Keeper. Together, these systems work to ensure harmful content does not appear on student devices. As an added layer of web content filtering, the district utilizes a system called Gaggle. Gaggle monitors student accounts for content related to drugs and alcohol, harassment, nudity and sexual content, profanity and vulgar language, suicide and self-harm, as well as violence towards others. When a violation, questionable content, or a possible student situation occurs, Green Bay staff are immediately notified and take action. It's also important to note that Gaggle is a mandatory reporter. If exploitation material is identified, GAGO will report the content and the user to law enforcement. At the classroom level, staff have access to Impero, a classroom management software system. This system allows staff to view student screens on their monitors or device while students are in class. Staff can block access to resources and push resources out to students to enhance the learning experience. Green Bay leads the state in the selection process for reviewing all media resources before they are used in the classroom. Prior to use, all resources must meet our stringent educational resource standards. Next, the resource is examined on how student data is being used. If student data is being collected, we learn what information is collected and how it is collected. We send the media resource company the Wisconsin Student Data Privacy Agreement that gathers assurances from the resource provider that they will be good stewards of our data, will not sell our students' data, or market to our students. This agreement also states that our students' data will be purged from the system when our school district no longer works with the selected resource. On a weekly basis, staff are provided access to the Friday Fast 5. The Friday Fast 5 is a publication that aims to ensure our staff have ongoing access to tidbits regarding student data privacy, technology best practices, and district-wide celebrations. As a parent, you may have a few questions about what you can do to keep your child safe online at home. Let's explore the following questions. What efforts can I make regarding screen time? Screen time is a great time for bonding with your child. Take interest in their online activities. Play online games or watch TV shows and movies together. Co-interacting with screens is a great way to stay connected to your child. When your child is using a device independently, consider the following screen time considerations. Device location. Monitor the use of devices by creating a central location in your home for device usage. Consider app usage. Be aware of the apps on your child's device and who your child is interacting with through these apps. Not all apps are safe, and we'll talk about this more with our next panel. Consider device bedtimes. Turn off devices at least 30 minutes prior to bedtime. Create a common charging station where all devices can be charged during sleeping hours. Make sure this is outside of your child's bedroom. Also consider time limits. Set time limits for your children to interact with devices while at home. Utilize resources from the American Academy of Pediatrics to create a family media plan and calculate media time for individual family members. Another question you might be asking yourself is, how can I model healthy use of technology? Consider the following. Be present and have moderate use. Enjoy the moments you spend with your family in a screen-free environment. Monitor and set boundaries of your technology use to fully engage in human interactions. It is okay to take a break from all text messages, notifications, games, and shows, and spend time with your family free of technology. Set expectations and model good digital behavior for your children. Establish, enforce, and model the technology-related guidelines and expectations that you set for your children. Children learn from the behavior of adults. Model positive digital behavior by refraining from using your phone while driving. Set your phone aside while eating at the dinner table, or place positive comments on social media rather than negatives. Children will appreciate seeing you model positive use of technology. Consider how much you share online. Parents should never overshare information about themselves or their children online. Have a conversation with your children about what you would like to post about them online. It is best to ensure that there will not be any regrets on your posting years from now. Finally, you might be wondering, what other resources are available to assist me? And there are quite a few, but I'll take the opportunity to mention a few. NetSmarts is an online safety education program that provides age-appropriate videos and activities to help teach children to be safe online. Common Sense Media provides age-based reviews of children-based resources for families to review prior to children using resources. And finally, Protect Young Eyes and ChildNet can help to ensure that your home is internet ready. Together, the district and families can assist students in learning appropriate ways to interact with digital environments for learning and entertainment purposes. We believe that with parents and guardians as our partners, we can help our students gain skills, understanding, and dispositions that will enable them to be responsible and safe in the digital world. Further information on how you can support your child navigating an online environment can be found on our district webpage. First, go to GBAPS.org. Navigate to our district, then departments, followed by technology. And finally, look for the link that says resources for families. In the future, your child's digital footprint will carry far more weight than anything they might include on a resume. Keeping in mind the words of Chris Betcher, I would like to introduce you to a panel of speakers from local law enforcement and a representative from Family Services Sexual Assault Center. Please join me in welcoming Tracy and Matt from the Brown County Sheriff's Department, John from the Green Bay Police Department, and Shelby from Family Services Sexual Assault Center. Bye.
Hi, my name is Sergeant Tracy Holzbach. I'm with the Brown County Sheriff's Office. I currently work as an Internet Crimes Against Children investigator. I've been with the Sheriff's Office for 18 years and primarily doing the Internet Crimes Against Children work since 2014. Along with myself is my partner, Matt Wilson.
Hi, my name is Sergeant Matthew Wilson. I'm a detective sergeant with the Brown County Sheriff's Office. I specialize in internet crimes against children and also human trafficking cases since 2017.
Hi, I'm John Peters. I'm with the Green Bay Police Department. I'm currently assigned the Internet Crimes Against Children. I've been with the department for 21 years and I've been doing this with Matt and Tracy for the past 5 years.
And we also have Shelby with us. Shelby, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Shelby. I'm the anti-trafficking advocate with Family Services Sexual Assault Center.
So the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force was created by the Department of Justice in 1998, essentially to combat internet crimes against children once the internet was created back in the late 90s or mid 90s, I should say. Started basically with the mission to help law enforcement respond to investigations where offenders were using the internet. It's funded by the Department of Justice, as well as the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. And currently there are over 4,500 federal, state, and local agencies that are in the ICAC task force. And in Wisconsin, there are 293 ICAC affiliates within the state. What that means is each department that chooses to can send an investigator or an officer to specific internet crimes against children training. And then that person would then link up with the Department of Justice, do all the necessary paperwork, and become an advocate, or I'm sorry, an affiliate with the ICAC task force. On the bottom there are just some stats from the ICAC task force and the DOJ as far as how long they've been around, the number of task forces that are in the United States, the number of agencies, as well as the number of law enforcement members that are trained, complaints received, and over 89,000 individuals arrested for some sort of internet crimes against children.
Along with the Green Bay Police Department and the Brown County, we do have two other agencies that are in partnership with us. That would be the De Pere Police Department and Nashwaubnom Public Safety. We are all part of the Wisconsin ICAC task force, and we work all our cases together.
So we were asked to, as law enforcement agencies and entities, we were asked to participate along with the Green Bay Area Public School District and help educate parents and those that are any sort of representation of a parent and whatnot within a home, guardians or whatnot, to help with how do we combat and make sure that our children are safe online. There's, in this day and age, we're parenting in a digital world. And what we're going to do throughout this presentation is discuss some topics with you that include online predators, cyberbullying, sexting. When should you allow your child to use a smartphone? What social networks to allow them to use, along with how do you actually talk to your child about the use of their cell phones and or computer devices. I know that there are a lot of within the school districts in our community, whether it's Green Bay or De Pere, Howard, Swamico, et cetera, a lot of students are provided some sort of laptop or Chromebook or whatnot. And even though we understand that the school is monitoring those devices, it's quite often that we actually get complaints of certain activity that's suspicious in nature and illegal that's occurring on these devices as a result of your child being in possession of it. So even though the school district is all school districts are attempting to do, wonderful jobs with monitoring, the safety, there are at times loopholes or kids just don't care that they are, navigating, to places on the internet that they're not supposed to be using a school device. Some other topics that we're going to discuss are, what is an app and what types of apps are potentially going to be on your children's phone? How do you know that they're using certain applications? What can you use to help identify the usage of these applications on your child's devices? How long are they online? And what information are they sharing online? And how to protect them ultimately from anybody online that might want to harm them?
So the biggest thing that we teach, or we try to teach parents in today's day and age with the digital world is, know what your kids are doing, know what applications are out there, what each application has the ability to do. Obviously, there's a ton of apps out there via cell phone or tablet. New ones are coming out pretty much daily, and it's pretty tough for law enforcement to keep up with the ones that are coming out. Obviously, the more popular ones that we'll discuss later on in the presentation, we can cover, and a lot of them people already know, but there are ones out there that are coming out every single day that just people don't know about, and they don't know the capabilities. One of the biggest things that we try and teach the parents is, hit on a couple things as far as teach your kids at an early age to protect themselves. For instance, I'll use Facebook. Obviously, there's a name that you can be entered, your regular name, Matt Wilson, or is it something that you may want to use their first name or their middle initial or something along those lines, to where you're not giving out their full name on the internet right away to, potential predators. The same thing with the identity. Each one of those websites ask you to put in a date of birth, what your geological sign is, or astrological, sign is, and certain other things that, height, weight, other things like that, that might specify your child and, how old they are, what type of body type they have, and certain things that might identify them a little bit easier had they not been using, or have they used their real name and whatnot. The same thing with reputation. I think everybody has seen in the last couple of years that, a superstar, rap star, sports star, something like that will put something out on a tweet, and 5-10 years later, the tweet comes back to haunt them, or something comes back to haunt them, and damage their reputation. What we try to tell parents and also kids alike is, when you're out there doing things, the minute you put that out there, it's out there. Somebody's going to capture it. Somebody's going to screenshot it. Somebody's going to have some sort of record of it. So where that in 5, 10, 2 years, you might not be able to explain it, or you're going to have to do a lot of explaining on why you made certain comments, or why you liked a different photo or something like that. So these are just some of the three big ones that we hit on to say, hey, pay attention to what your kids are doing, what they're doing in the apps, what their name is, and all that, the identity and stuff. And also, again, protect your reputation. Eventually, somebody's going to see it somewhere along the way. Somebody's going to share it. Somebody's going to like it. And you might not like the content, a couple years down the road, what you put out.
And hitting off of what Matt says, we also teach the parents about online strangers. It's not about stranger danger. It's with all these apps and with social media, kids talk to kids and start meeting other kids, which are strangers online. And then it's just a fact. So going off what Matt was saying, is it's about communicating with your children. Also focus on risky behaviors. You know, pay attention where your children are online with their electronics, whether it's a laptop, a cell phone. You know, try to talk to them and help them make the decisions of doing it in the public area, in your living room. You know, with parents around, don't allow them to go into the bathroom with their cell phones. Don't let them in the bedrooms at night. It's all about communication, allowing them or having them realize about that the parent has the right to go into their phone, look at what sites they're taking a look at. Also, too much information, saying you know, your address, passcodes to friends. You know, and I kind of hit off of being secretive, going in other rooms with their electronics. When I go back to stranger danger and strangers, you know, a lot of it is predators. And predators are not pedophiles. Majority of our individuals are over the age of 26. They're not acting like a child, they're acting like a teen. So basically, for online strangers, just educate your children and have an open communication with them. It sounds tough, but it can be done.
So we get questions quite often, whether it's a case that we're working in dealing with parents after the fact. And the question is, what is the best parent monitoring app that I can put on my kid's phone? We clearly can't. There are so many of them. There are ones that we are realizing while working cases that some are more successful than others. And although we can't advocate for one specific or two specific ones, there's one that I'm going to show you at the end of this slide, this presentation, that is very noted as being an app that quite a few parents use and have had great success with. But it comes down to doing your homework. Do your homework on what you think is best for you and your family and your children. And yes, some cost money, some are free. I think that you're probably going to get a little bit better service if you're paying for it. But I also understand that that's not always realistic. So I would say educate yourself on, you know, what type of parental controls. Some phones actually even allow for their own parental controls within the device itself. So it does come down to parents monitoring, taking the time to ask their son or daughter for the device. I personally believe in all the cases that we work on a regular basis. And it's something that we see quite often is that parents say they never go into their child's phone because they trust them. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't trust your child. What I'm saying is don't trust the people that are communicating with your child. You may have all the trust in the world for your child and they've never done anything to prove themselves other than honest and have good integrity with you within the home. But it just takes one evil person to try to infiltrate your child and for them to just make an awful mistake for something bad to happen. There are questions that we get from families and parents, you know, can I track them? Can I use a GPS to track them? Well, there are applications and devices or applications that you can put on your device that allow for that GPS tracking. So it does come down to taking a little bit of time to educate yourself on what you think would be best and what you're allowing your child to do while on their devices. Who are you allowing them to communicate with? Are you able to communicate with, you know, complete strangers? Is that a thing where, as long as you don't believe that they're meeting up with them, that you don't have a problem if they're friending everybody under the sun to, you know, build up their and boost up their social media status? I think that's actually a terrible idea, but I understand, having dealt with certain families and parents, that that's been acceptable in their homes. So I don't necessarily think that's a great idea, primarily because even though John talked about, you know, the stranger danger thing, everybody that communicates online on a daily basis is likely subject to meet someone that they've never met before in person. And our goal is to say, unless you've ever met them in person or know of them through a second party, you should never friend them. So in discussing parental monitoring and spying apps, I guess is what you would call them, it comes down to, yes, you can purchase an app or you can find an app online that's probably a free of service, but it comes down to you as a parent taking control and deciding who is your child communicating with. It is your job to know who your child's communicating with. What technology are they actually using to communicate? Are they on a cell phone? Are they on, a school tablet or a Chromebook or whatnot? And when are you allowing them online access? When can they use this technology? I understand that with remote learning, that your children are likely to be on a device that's, especially during school hours, more than they're not, because they have to do, what they have to do for school. But I think the reality also is that it's very important to know that while they may be working on homework, they could also have a tab open to communicate with somebody through an anonymous chat site. So the reality is you are in control of this. And like I stated earlier, not so much to discredit, your child's trust, but to protect them. That's what it comes down to. So we discuss at what age, quite often actually within the office, how old should you be to be able to get a device? That's not even a question that we can answer. To be completely honest and be respectful, every family has their own dynamic. Every family has their own need. Every family has their own purpose for providing any sort of electronic to their child. So we're not here to judge that. What I can tell you is that in the times that we've seen children become victims of any sort of sexual exploitation online, it literally has come down to, in my opinion, working as many as I do on an annual basis, it comes down to parents' complete lack of supervision of that said device. So as far as there are certain, requirements for certain social media sites, you have to be 13 years old to enter to be legal per se. But there's really no fact checking behind that. They can lie about their birthday, they can lie about things. And if you're not aware that they have these applications on their device, that's the dangerous part, is that they can become a victim so much easier if you are not the person that has eyes on these devices to make sure that they're safe on a day-to-day basis.
So I'll piggyback off of what Tracy said. As law enforcement, today's day and age and technology, the laws have not kept up with technology and the development of devices and other technology as well. Basically, we're behind the times. The courts are behind the times when it comes to technology. If you're not, even though you purchase the cell phone, pay for the cell phone plan, and whatever applications are on that cell phone, you as a parent need to regularly go into that child's phone and see who the contacts are, what the text messages and the context of those text messages are, as well as the applications and what they're doing in those applications. If for some reason, and by regularly, I mean, we're talking probably once a week just to check to see what your child is doing. Not necessarily maybe as a helicopter parent, but just to make sure that nobody else is contacting them for anything, stranger danger, back to touch on what John just talked about. If you're not regularly in that cell phone, let's say you're in there once or twice, once every other month, and you don't know the passcode, or you're not in it regularly. If for some reason you get into it and you find something illegal, and you turn it over to law enforcement actually has to get consent from that child. The court system has said that child has an expectation of privacy to that cell phone if the parents aren't regularly in there checking on what they're doing. So when we tell parents that, and even from my personal standpoint, it gets parents upset because they think that if they pay for the cell phone, they pay for the service, that pretty much opens up the floodgates for them and for law enforcement, which is not true. So the laws just haven't kept up with the technology. So if you do end up purchasing a phone for your child, just again, you need to be in that thing regularly to see what they're doing. Kind of, I don't want to date myself, but kind of like the old days of, if you brought over a new friend or you're going to stay at a new friend's house, parents have to meet the parents, and all that stuff has to occur. Where nowadays with technology, kind of what Tracy just touched on, kids are on Instagram with 4,000 friends. Well, they don't even go to school with 4,000 people. How do they know 4,000 people on Instagram? So you just have to kind of keep up. And again, it goes back to, what are these applications? What is their capabilities of doing? and things like that. So just to touch on it, I know that's a question that we get asked often about children and cell phones, and why we're not able to just go through kids' phones with the parents' permission. It's because the courts have literally tied our hands and said they have an expectation of privacy. So speaking of privacy, as far as the kids protecting their personal information, it kind of touches back on what I said before with, do you really want to put their full name on Facebook and their date of birth and other things on there? Or, do you just want to put their name with their middle name, their first name and middle name to kind of protect their personal information? Obviously, our go-to is never put any personal information in any sort of website unless you have to. Obviously, banking and things like that, you've got to. But for social media sites, we don't, you don't want to put your birthday in there, your social security number, anything like that, that could be used against you. Obviously, passwords are another big thing. Companies nowadays are starting to issue passwords for like Wi-Fi and stuff like that. It'll be on your router. However, for Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, whatever, you can make up your own password. Obviously, we would vote against password with the capital P with a 1 and an exclamation point, or the 1 through 8, or just the easy ones that can get hacked all the time. Obviously, any sort of lengthy password with capital letters and also some sort of punctuation in there or something that will make it more tricky or difficult for hackers or anything to get your stuff. Because typically, let's be real, if you've got one password for one social media website, it's probably the same for all the other ones. Something easy that you can remember, that you're not going to think twice about. You're just going to be able to enter it. So again, if you've got multiple websites and other things, change up the passwords a little bit. Not just don't change the number at the end, change the entire password. And then also the privacy setting for the websites and the apps. For instance, Snapchat allows you to enable your location services. So if you bring up the Snapchat map, it will tell you anybody that is around you that has their location services on, whether they're friends or not. So for instance, you can go into Snapchat and put in what they call ghost mode, which turns your location services off, which then nobody can track you. And when I say nobody, I mean other people using the application. So it all again resorts back to knowing what these apps are doing, knowing their capabilities. Are they able to track you? Can you turn that feature off? If you can't, that's probably not an app you want to be using, because people can easily bring up a map or something and be able to get your location. And obviously, if it's late at night, then they're going to know your home location, because if it's midnight, 2 a.m, and your kids are chatting and they're sitting at home, they're going to be able to see that. And then on the bottom there, learn what can be private and what's never private on social media. We always, I just go by the rule of thumb that if you're going to put it on social media, it's out there for good. No matter if Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, whatever the case may be, the minute you put it out there, it's out there. Somebody's going to screen capture it. Somebody's going to get the, like it or share it or something like that. And then it's gone forever. Even though you think that it's only 100 of your closest friends on Facebook, at some point in time, somebody else is going to get a hold of that. It's out there. So I just kind of err on the side of caution, say whatever you don't want your parents seeing or anybody seeing or your bosses or anything like that, you shouldn't put it out there.
When it comes to our message to the parents, 2 things: communication and technology. Parents think that's very scary, and you would think communication with your children wouldn't be, but it's very difficult, especially when you are talking about technology and this. But you have to be creative and start talking to your children when they're young, or now, because now obviously they have concerns, but that breaks down the barriers. And if you just have to remember, cell phones, laptops, they're not, up here they say it's, not a magic or private box. I always refer to the commercial of with a bunch of parents standing around is who wants to open up the PDF, and they all back off because they're all scared. You have to take a step forward. And the big thing is breaking that communication barrier. And it's actually not too scary when you tell your kids, is, hey, look, I'm dumb to this. Show me how this works. Show me your phone. Show me how your app works, what apps are doing. Show me how Snapchat. Go through that with them. because they actually are enjoying teaching you. And it's amazing as a parent or as investigators, when we break down that barrier and start talking to these kids, they start explaining things that we didn't know about. You start learning new apps because every day there's a new app. It's a new app. It's a challenge for us. So when we talk to kids, we just break down that barrier and they start showing us, be involved with it, learn the online language. You can always Google everything and you can find out what these kids are saying, because sometimes it's very important because everything is their online language now. When it comes to technology and how many hours or how long you allow a child to go on these, we can't tell you what the magic number is, because it's amazing is they don't go to libraries anymore for study groups. It's all their academic groups. They have slots where they have to work on their school projects. Athletics has evolved to not just the gym time or softball diamonds or football field, is now they have assignments. So that's how you have to be involved, because you need to know what your children are doing while they're on that phone. And then one thing I always don't use screen time, or you can use screen time for punishments, but you can't take their electronics away because of athletics, academics. And I'll correct myself, academics come before athletics. So academics, athletics, and whatever extra school activities they have, because if you take away that screen time, the entire screen time or their electronics, then they fall behind. So you have to be extremely creative on what punishments are. But the number one thing is communicate with your children. Communication.
Just to piggyback off of what John said, if you guys don't know, for the parents out there, you are able to, for an iPhone specifically, I know Samsung I'm not really too familiar with, but like for an iPhone, any application that you install on there, you can actually go into the iPhone and limit the usage time for each application. So if you want your child just on Snapchat, let's say for 20 minutes a day, you can actually go into the settings on the iPhone and actually limit the amount of time that application is open. Once the 20-minute time expires, the application it'll shut itself down, and you cannot get into it without a password. Obviously, you can go into the settings and the parent would have to set up all that information with the passcode. They are able to bypass the time limits if you so choose, but that's just another option for the parents. If you think, kind of what John was talking about with, you need the tablets for the schoolwork and the phones for the schoolwork and athletics and stuff like that, but you can also limit the time on the specific applications for each phone or each app.
So we have been talking throughout this presentation about an app. What is an app? I can tell you that if I asked either one of my parents right now, they would have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to an app. I can tell you that prior to working in the Internet Crimes Against Children division, I don't necessarily know that I was all that familiar with what apps were. Right now, it's our life. That's all we do. That's all we work with. I'm going to talk in a few minutes about the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and it directly relates to applications that are on your children's devices. So essentially, what is an app? An app is any sort of online program that your child can access through their device. So if it's an iPhone, it's through the Play Store. If it's on an Android device, it's through the Google Play Store. And what this allows is it allows for your child to participate with various activities while on the device. So whether it's Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, as long as you are not monitoring their devices, they have the ability to put any and all of these applications on their phone to use. I'm going to ask Sergeant Wilson's assistance with some of these devices, because some of them are actually geared towards his line of work with human trafficking, but I'm going to talk precisely about my professional experience with 2 or 3 of the most dangerous apps I've seen And when I say dangerous, my primary duties are those that sexually exploit children. So I deal a lot with, actually every day, myself and John, and Matt as well, but Matt gears towards the human trafficking aspect a little bit more. We deal with the online child sexual exploitation every single day. We have to view children being sexually abused and exploited on a daily basis. And when these reports come in, whether they come in through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, or they come in through our patrol officers reporting online enticement from people like you at home, that they found out that their children are victims of some sort of online enticement. The apps that we are seeing that are extremely dangerous, in my professional opinion, number one is Kick Messenger. Your child, in my opinion, should never have Kick Messenger on their phone. It is the number one app for trading child pornography that we have come across. And I have been to multiple conferences within the United States that they would concur that Kick Messenger is a very dangerous app. It's an anonymous chat group where you can trade pictures and videos. And this company actually comes back to Canada. There are legal ways to get certain search warrants through. We are able to do it, but with the anonymity of that app and the Omegle app that you'll see in the upper corner, that's orange and blue. These are anonymous chat sites. They don't require a username. They don't require a sign-in. They don't require anything. You can load them up. You can bluff your username. You can bluff everything, and you can be chatting with somebody and sending pictures in a matter of seconds. This is what makes the internet dangerous. If you are not monitoring the applications on your children's device, they will dabble into an Omegle app because they hear about it and they wonder what it is. And the next thing you know, they're being asked to share explicit pictures or videos of themselves, something they would probably never do without the coercion of an adult that is making them feel like they should be doing it, that it's a secretive thing and that no one will, tell. It's scary. So this is what it comes down to, parents, and making sure that we're monitoring apps. Some of the other apps, Matt, maybe you can touch on Bumble and Yubu. I'm not all that familiar with them.
Yeah, so Bumble is essentially it's a dating app that men go on there, and women, it's basically the women's version of Tinder, if you will, where they control, who they reach out to. We've seen actually quite a bit of uptick in Bumble, Plenty of Fish, and a lot of other dating websites in the human trafficking world, with guys reaching out to girls and vice versa to try to lure them in. Obviously, your big ones, the Grindr is another one. That is a male homosexual app, and there's a lot of child sex predators on there for male to male. You'd be quite surprised how many arrests that we've had locally on that app. Snapchat and Instagram, everybody kind of knows those. Yubo is another one, just like Tracy was saying. It's an anonymous chat application. And again, you'd have to go on and obviously see what its capabilities are. The one at the bottom there, Whisper, is kind of a unique one. That actually requires you to activate your location services. And the messages and the pictures and information that you get off that app is actually solely based on where you're located. It will actually take a range of about 5 to 10 miles, see who else is on Whisper within your range, and then send you all of whatever they're posting, and then you can respond back and forth to that person. So that is one of those where you have to have your location services enabled, otherwise you can't even get on the app. So I think that was Scout is another one. That's another anonymous application, a chat application, and most of them are the chat applications. But the thing to remember with a lot of these applications, with what we do is, we can go all the way from Omegle or the TikTok, anything that has the capability of messaging, which most apps are nowadays, messaging back and forth either through DMs, which are direct messages. If you don't know what that is, that's your kids will all the time on Instagram and other places, hit me up in my DM. That just means direct messaging. That means they're like one-on-one, they're talking between them and another person. Any application that has the ability to message people back and forth, you're going to find child sex predators on, you're going to find people trading child pornography and certain things. I mean, we've had cases where Pinterest, the application for Pinterest, where girls get all sorts of wedding ideas and stuff like that, where they're trading child pornography and child sex predators are on. So anything really that connects to the internet. Gaming is another big one that's popped up in the last couple of years that has direct messaging. So it just kind of goes to show you that, again, we're trying to ask parents to familiarize yourself with these applications, know what they do, know what their capabilities are.
I think something else to just be familiar with whenever using an app too is if you start out using one app and maybe someone you're talking to for the first time, or maybe even for a while, and then all of a sudden they're asking you to jump to another app, and then the same thing happens from that app. So an example would be you start out maybe talking on Instagram, they'll have you jump to Kik, talk on there for a little while, and then jump to Omegle and so forth. That's very much on purpose for that person. And essentially they're recruiting and just trying to get a little information on each of those. Obviously makes it much harder for law enforcement to track a continual conversation for that person too. So that would be a major red flag to look out for.
If you guys don't know this, the spy calculators, the hidden photo vault apps have been actually a really big hit and with the teens as of the last couple of years, and kind of a problem for us. So what you see there is just an example of what we call the spy calculator. Essentially what that looks like is it's an application that looks like a calculator. It functions like a calculator completely. If you start punching in numbers and adding and subtracting, it will give you the proper answers. Once a code is actually a specific code, let's say it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, it's typed in, and then they hit the divide button, that'll actually reveal on the bottom right of the screen there, if you see, it'll reveal hidden photo vaults behind the calculator, which then can hold all sorts of videos and photos, whatever they put there. The user of the phone has the ability, so let's say you're under one iCloud as a family, and the person takes a picture off of Snapchat or Instagram, Omegle, whatever the case may be, the user actually has the ability to dump that picture or video into the photo vaults and then delete it from the iCloud account from their phone so that you would never see it on the cloud account. So these things have been a really big hit, along with the photo vaults, which is the same thing. Essentially, you have to enter in a passcode to get into the photo vaults. If you don't enter the right passcode, you can't get in. Now, once you get in the photo vault, you can actually secure a separate folder inside there. So you need actually technically a second password within that app to get to the videos and photos. So again, this is just more information, more of what to watch out for. I would be pretty skeptical as a parent, and I think most everybody on this is a parent, but on the panel here are parents, but each cell phone or tablet or whatever nowadays comes with a calculator built in. So your little iPhone calculator, I think it's orange and white or whatever. I don't know what, I think Samsung is green. There should be no reason that your child downloads a specific calculator application on that phone because it's already built into the phone. So if you see something like that, I would actually absolutely question your child why they're downloading a separate calculator app.
So this next slide, it just kind of struck me as to how big of a generation gap there can be. And I think that this is actually an older slide from 2012, but it's the most current that I had access to. It's the parent versus teen perspective. And it discussed if who talks to their child about risk benefits of being online rules and expectations. A parent's going to say, 93% of parents versus 61% of teens say that this conversation occurs. If you'll actually see in this chart, there's a few other questions: who's reviewed their child's browsing history, who's logged into their child's Facebook or social media account, who set rules about time limits. You're going to see that there's a very significant gap in what parents say versus kids. And we are hoping, and on a day-to-day basis at the sheriff's office and working with John, who works with us here at the sheriff's office, that this gap narrows. If this gap narrows, that means we're doing our job, that parents are listening to us, that they're monitoring their children's devices, and that they are trying to avoid their child being any sort of a victim to an online predator or even an online scam artist, you know, and we don't even just teach this to children. I mean, there are elderly, unfortunately, and those that don't know how to navigate various devices are victims of fraud and scams and things such as that. But if we just come down to, you know, the education and making sure that parents have actual eyes instead of thinking that they have eyes on their children's devices, just to make sure that you take that extra effort to do it, I think would just be a very lasting impact on everybody. So we're going to discuss, I'm going to go through a few slides here. I talked previously about, you know, how do you report online exploitation? You know, you can call your local law enforcement agency. I can tell you that anybody that lives or resides in the Brown County area, we have, as stated earlier, we have multiple different agencies that are actually ICAC certified, which means that there are investigators within the agency that their primary duties are the internet crimes against children or human trafficking, that our only jobs are to work on these types of incidents. So you may not think that there's an opportunity for us to find the perpetrator that might be exploiting your child, but we've all collectively been doing this for so long that I would call us experts in our field because we are very versed, even though the apps might change on a day-to-day basis and we might not know all of what they are about. We'll figure out what they're about, but we're experts when it comes down to tracking people down, and there are ways to do that. And so have faith, especially if you live in the Brown County area. I know that there are also surrounding counties that provide, you know, internet crimes against children services within certain agencies. And if nothing else, you have our contact information at the start of this presentation that you can start with us if you're not sure where to go, whether it's an email or a phone call to our respective agency to talk to us and see what it's about and see if it's something that you want to further, you know, investigate and whatnot. Next, I'm gonna give it a little bit of time to discuss the next entity. It's the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is actually based out of Washington, D.C. area. It's the nation's nonprofit clearinghouse and comprehensive reporting center for all issues related to the prevention and the recovery of child victimization and essentially child missing children cases, abduction, abuse, and exploitation. So essentially, any report that is filed online with any of the applications that I've discussed, and there are so many other ones that we didn't even discuss today, but if you felt that your child was the victim of any sort of exploitation or abuse or harassment even online, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children actually serves as a clearinghouse to be able to report these incidents online. So the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has a tip line. It's a cyber tip line. So a couple ways that we are able to receive reports. I mentioned earlier, they come in through our patrol officers where people are actually calling the police to report them. Another avenue is through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And what happens here is either people are online reporting and they provide, you know, the location of where they reside. And then it's the National Center's job to farm that out to the respective law enforcement agency to handle that situation. The applications that are online are federally mandated to report any sort of online exploitation or anything that might be suspicious in nature as it relates to children. So typically what would happen is if there's something that's illegal or deemed to be potentially illegal, where there's any sort of potential for exploitation, I'm just going to use an example. It doesn't mean that, you know, this is one that we deal with more than the next, but I'm going to use Instagram or Facebook. They're owned by the same company. They're owned by Facebook. If Instagram reports suspicious behavior online, what will happen is Instagram will immediately freeze that account they will capture all the identifying information that was provided on that account. That includes usernames, personal names, phone numbers, emails associated with the account. It will also capture the IP address associated with that account. When capturing that, they actually send that to the National Center along with the suspicious activity that's occurring. So whether it's exploitation, or they will even report, suicidal ideations that come across. Whatever they're capturing, it actually gets processed by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And then that ultimately, based on IP address alone, because that can be geo-tracked, that gets sent to the respective law enforcement agency. So if there's an incident that occurred in the Green Bay area, it would get sent to Brown County, and then Brown County ultimately decides, okay, well, we have a couple partnerships with local agencies. Does this come back to the De Pere area, Ashwaubenon, Green Bay? And then we'll actually farm that out to the respective agency in which the IP address comes back to. So the tip line can be an anonymous tip line. You can also provide your personal information if you want follow-up, or if you were reporting something, the more is better. So if you're reporting more information that allows us to follow up with, if you're reporting a child being, exploited online or harassed online or solicited online, the more information you provide the National Center, that's the information they relay to us, and it allows us to have better contact one-on-one with the person that's actually reporting it, so that we can follow through and give it a proper investigation. So essentially, I kind of just covered this, but what happens with the cyber tip? It's obviously reviewed by staff. Unfortunately, the staff also reviews the images and videos that are being captured by the various service providers online. And there are staff at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children that are subject to child sexual abuse material. So although they are not a law enforcement agency whatsoever, they are doing their part in making sure that, we protect our children online, and making sure that we hold those accountable that are, soliciting and sending child abuse material. So we talk about quite often in cases and educating our children. If there's a picture of you out there, like Sergeant Wilson stated earlier, there is no way to get that picture back. As much as I want to wave a magic wand and say we got it back and it's forever with us and it's never going to be out there, I can't say that. I don't tell people that. It's not realistic. If your picture or a video of your children or child is out there, it is unequivocally out there forever, for it to never be taken back. There are certain avenues we can go, obviously prosecution, investigation, and hold people accountable. But it's more than just that. It's the trauma of your child potentially being the victim of sexual abuse, an online sexual abuse situation. The National Center has such an expansive division when it comes to assisting families with support and providing them assistance. I do have, either on the next slide, or I can make sure that we provide that. I do believe it might have been earlier in a slide, but going direct with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, it's an avenue to afford yourself the ability to speak with someone. There are local entities as well, and we're gracious enough to have Shelby on our team here and working with us on a day-to-day basis when it comes to dealing with victims that have been abused, especially online abuse. And it's not just in-person abuse, but like I stated, it's also, the feeling of being completely taken advantage of online. And now I'm going to give Shelby a chance to discuss a little bit further how she assists law enforcement in her role, and how she can help you in the private sector get the help that you might need.
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. So one of the big ways that we come into play as victim advocates is obviously having your image out there, feeling like you have no control over where that image goes, can lead to a lot of mental health issues and just feeling of helplessness. So what we do at the Sexual Assault Center is we provide some emotional support, and that can mean a lot of different things for each individual. So some have more needs than others, but what we try and do is provide that crisis response So as soon as we know that something has happened, we're getting in touch with you either in person, by phone, wherever you are. So that could be at school, the sheriff's department. We're making that contact with you. It's really important for us to provide that crisis response and get that immediate support to you. So that's our crisis intervention. We do provide that ongoing support, and that's where the emotional support comes in. That is the use of our crisis hotline. It could be having an assigned advocate to you, that you're contacting that advocate and providing that support. And then each case is a little bit different too. Some people may need that medical advocacy. So that's physically going to the hospital and having evidence collected. We are there physically with you at the hospital and providing that support. After the hospital, it could be that this case is legally charged, and then you're going through the court process. We are there for you during that whole court process as well. And then as we continue on, court, as many of us know, is not a quick process. It can be a very lengthy, unfortunately, process. And we are there the entire time, months to years down the road, providing that continual support for you. And then as you need referrals in the community, we're also providing those. So that could be counseling, it could be housing. Every person, like I said, is different and they have different needs. So we try and get whatever you need connected to those supports. For more information to reach out to us, you can go to our website, which is familyservicesnew.org, or the Sexual Assault Center. Our hotline is 920-436-8899. So not only do we work with law enforcement, we have something called a SART, which is a sexual assault response team. These types of cases do fall into that. So we are all working together as a team, providing that immediate response. We do also work with schools. So like I said before, we can respond to a school. So if one of your children is reporting to a school counselor or a teacher, we can physically go to the school, meet with them, find out what's going on. And at that point, the school resource officer may also be involved. So we do have a lot of services. Not only do we provide services here in Brown County, but we do the same thing in Dorr, Oconto, and Marinette. So it's really important for us to be able to provide that sense of safety and security for you. And so much of that is lost when pictures are sent online or there's that exploitation.
So these next couple of slides are just some resources that we put in there for parents to go on. I know there's probably a handful of them here, but the first one that we typically send parents to is icactaskforce.org. As you'll see where the red circle is there, once you click on that link, it's within the app there, or the website there, a whole bunch of stuff, slideshows, videos, articles, all that kind of stuff on internet safety resources, what you can do as a parent, what's allowed, what's not allowed, and then other tips and experiences that other people have faced, parents that are going through probably some of the same stuff that you're going through. So a lot of interesting stuff in there. Along with the next one is commonsensemedia.org. Again, these are all just kind of the same thing, just different, put out by different groups. That other one, the ICAC task force, is actually run by the Department of Justice. So it's got a lot of good stuff on it. The same thing with this one. As you'll see at the top there, some of the best apps and games, the topics, and then also it will allow you to explore by age on the right-hand side there on certain things of what kids can do. And obviously the main question there, the back to school night stuff. So again, just another website for parents to go on, look up information, get some tips, get some experiences on there. Along with the next one, it's connectingsafely.org. Again, your typical safety website. A lot of these have some of the same information, obviously different platforms. but just different ways to report it, or different ways, different articles to read, that you can, educate yourself on and get some tips and stuff from not only law enforcement, but the Department of Justice, and also advocacy groups as well. So.
To piggyback off of Matt, there's a couple of more sites. National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They have netsmarts.org. That's for parents, guardians, educators, law enforcement. They provide educational programs for internet safety, amongst other things. You also have, if you want to go to the next slide, nsteens.org, which is a site that teens can go on to. I think it's more geared for the ages of 8 to 12, but it has video and games that teach about internet safety. They can also go in there, and there's 6 steps that teens can go, which shows them how limited information that someone has on you can actually get more information on you. So it's a really good education mechanism for teens.
Finally, I stated earlier, this is a really big question and a very frequent question that we get when we have children that are reported either locally, or we find them through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, where their accounts are being froze essentially, and then reported to us for suspicious activity. I can tell you that in my personal experience, that probably 9 out of 10 parents have no clue that their kids' accounts have been shut down, that when I'm either calling them or knocking on their door and letting them know that their child, was participating in certain activity, that it comes in complete disbelief and in shock. So their next question after the case is resolved is, how do I monitor my kid's device? We talked about this throughout this presentation. I'm not completely, I'm not trying to say that this is the only application out there, but what I can tell you is that, there are a few parents that I have dealt with that have used this device after being in here and having to deal with law enforcement and their child being exploited online, that this is one of them that they've contacted me back and indicated that it's been an application that they can use to monitor their children's activity, and it's been very successful. There's another app called Life 360. That's also an application that parents have reported back to me that they've been using, and their child has been free of any sort of, activity or, trying to skirt the system by downloading things that they're not supposed to, downloading applications that they're not supposed to, and being online. I guess in conclusion, I'll let Matt and John speak for themselves if there's anything else that Shelby might have. But know that we are here as a resource here in Brown County. Know that we are very educated on how the online internet safety works, and how online predators work, and how we are very successful at prosecuting and, bringing people to justice that are preying on kids online, and that we will do everything and anything to help you and your family if you ever need us. So don't hesitate. If there's any hesitation at all, like I said, you don't even have to communicate with us, over the telephone. If you want to shoot an email, if that's easier for you to do, or just know that we're here as a resource for you, and that we'll do anything we can to help you and your family if the time were to arise that you would need assistance.
Yeah, and I think obviously I've touched on it a bunch of times, but I can't stress and harp on it enough. Know these applications, know what your kids are doing. You have the ability to limit applications that are downloaded to a tablet and cell phone with a passcode that you can choose. Again, put those restrictions on the phone, just because with today's day and age, you never know. Obviously, way back in the day, we used to teach the stranger danger of kind of what John talked about, the stranger danger with the windowless van with free candy on the side. We laugh because that's just the old school days, but nowadays it's so much more dangerous online, because you can be whoever you want to be anonymously on a lot of these things. So before your child puts an application or anything on the tablet or cell phone, make sure you know what that application is, what the capabilities are, and what it can do. So
just go off of what Matt and Tracy said is our number one is to protect the children, not only in Brown County, but everywhere. Just remember, most children are not getting in trouble online. But just remember, parents, our children are human, and it's what you do after you make the mistake. So just remember that. That's one of the biggest things that I just want parents to understand is all our kids aren't perfect. They're kids. They're going to make mistakes. It's what they learn and what they do after that mistakes. So, but our number one goal here is to protect all children in Brown County.
Yeah, John, I feel like that was a perfect setup for this next resource that I have, which is actually called Protect Kids Online. And why I love this website so much is it not only talks about every app, movie, game, it puts a recommended age that child can should download it or watch it, whatever. But then they also explain what that app is used for. So if there's anything that you're wondering about, that's a great site to go to, kind of a one-stop shop to check that out. And I would also recommend signing up for their newsletter. They're called weekly downloads, and you get them obviously once a week. They will usually highlight an app or a game, whatever it may be, and they will talk about the trend that's happening with that app. So it's really a quick snapshot to watch a 2-minute video on that trend and be aware of if your child has that app, and then you know how to better deal with it. The last thing I would say from our perspective too is knowing all the devices that you have in your home. So if you're no longer using a cell phone, you think that it's deactivated, you have it shoved in a drawer somewhere, know where they are, and just know too that if you're going in that drawer, your kids are seeing you go in that drawer, so they know that they're there. So if for a punishment you take away a cell phone, they might go to those other devices and utilize them through Wi-Fi. I cannot even tell you the number of cases we've all had with that, that they're getting on apps and being contacted by offenders. So also just be aware of that. And that goes for cell phones, tablets, anything that they can access the internet with.
Tracy, John, Matt, Shelby, thank you so much for your time today and sharing your expertise. You've provided the families of our district a lot of things to think about and consider, and we very, very much appreciate your time today.